Hey, this is Matt Cameron from Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, and I'm with Nate from the Vinyl Guide. We're here talking about my record store day release, Gory Scorch Cretins, coming out November 24th, Black Friday, record store day. Check it out.
This episode is brought to you by VMGVinyl.com. Professional record cleaning, restoration, rejuvenation, and grading. Refresh your records with VMGVinyl.com. And with that, on with the show. Well, hello, everyone. It's Nate. Welcome to episode 425 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And today, we've got a special Record Store Day Black Friday show, and we are featuring a conversation with Matt Cameron, who you likely know from his time with Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and a few dozen other projects, which I'm sure you have in your record collection. Matt has a very special release for this Record Store Day Black Friday, Gory Scorch Cretins, a set of songs featuring Melvins, and it even has a slight parody cover of Melvins. What am I talking about? It's not slight, it's not subtle, it's a full-on parody cover of Melvins' debut album, Gluey, Porch Treatments, which is a record that has been beloved by fans of the band since its release in 1987. It's still earning fans today, even recently enjoying a reissue on Ipecac. And today, Matt talks not only about making the project, Gory Scorch Cretins with the Melvins, but also the sessions with Buzz, Dale, Steven, and Toshi Kasai. We talk about the influence the band Melvins has had on him and the early Seattle sound. And if you are a Melvins nerd like I am, you're going to absolutely love this discussion. Matt also talks about the recordings and collaboration with the late Taylor Hawkins, working with Tony Iommi, some fanboy moments with Kiss, and what's up in 2024 with Pearl Jam and his other projects. So here is the moment where I'd normally say, find a copy of Matt Cameron's Gory Scorch Cretins on Record Store Day Black Friday. But quite frankly, I don't think I have to say that. I will say, however, there are only 2,500 of these records pressed, not a huge number, so they will be challenging to find on Record Store Day Black Friday. If you see one, grab one. Or you can start making nice with your independent record store owner and their staff. Bring them some cookies, some coffee, a few beers maybe would help. Help them celebrate Record Store Day Black Friday. Go in there and grab a stack of records from your local record shop. One of which is hopefully Matt Cameron's Gory Scorch Cretins. And one final thing, make sure you are following the Vinyl Guide podcast in your podcast app of choice. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, even Amazon Music for what that's worth. And we've got hundreds of other interviews available to enjoy anytime, such as Justin Chancellor of Tool, episode 417, Peter Hook talking about the records of Joy Division and sharing some stories of Ian Curtis, episode 412, Billy Bob Thornton and J.D. Andrew, episode 403, comedian and podcast chief Mark Maron, episode 400, Steve Turner of Mudhoney, episode 384, amphetamine reptile Grand Poobah Tom Hazelmeyer, episode 350, and we've had Buzz and Dale and Steven and even Toshi on the show. I forgot the episode numbers, but if you follow the Vinyl Guide podcast and scroll around, I'm sure you'll find them all. And with that, let's nerd out on Melvins and more with Pearl Jam and Soundgarden drummer Matt Cameron. Well, ladies and gentlemen, back on the show with a very interesting record for Record Store Day Black Friday. Mr. Matt Cameron, you may know him from his days in Soundgarden. You may know him from Behind the Kid at Pearl Jam and a myriad of other projects. But this is a solo project, a bit of an homage or collaboration with Melvins. How do you categorize Gory Scorch Cretins?
Well, thanks for having me on board again. Yeah, it's a collaboration. And my initial idea for recording with the Melvins was after we did the Chris Cornell tribute in early 2019, I just, reconnected with those guys. And I really wanted them to be part of that show. So I was in contact with Buzz, trying to figure out the performances, what songs we would do, just kind of the way the show was going to run and whatnot. And I really wanted those guys involved to some degree. And after that experience, which was a really positive one in terms of performing, and just the whole experience, I contacted Buzz afterwards and said, hey man, would you like to just do something together? Like, I'd love to just record, or I don't know, just do something. He was like, yeah, come down. So I think it was like maybe like early spring 2019. I went down there to LA, and they have a studio outside of Burbank, Sun Valley. I think it's kind of by the Burbank airport.
Okay. This is Toshi's place, yeah?
Yeah, Toshi's place. Yeah. And so Toshi was the producer. Yeah, so I just went there for, I think it was like two sessions, like 2-day sessions or something. And I had a bunch of music that I had just in demo form. And so I took all that music down there, and I didn't really play him too much stuff before I went into the studio with them, and basically just I showed Buzz, Dale, Steven, Toshi the music, and we just kind of dug in and started recording it.
So okay, so we'll back up slightly. So the for the Chris Cornell tribute, remind me what Melvins did. Did they play Spoonman? Is that
they did?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
They played Spoonman.
Because there's a recording of Spoonman on one of their EPs, the Lord of the Flies EP, that I think you are on drums, if I'm not
wrong. And
okay.
that's another thing that we did when I was down there.
Okay.
They had this Spoonman version of Spoonman that they wanted me to play on. And so we did some other stuff besides my solo stuff. They were starting a podcast, and we did a podcast interview together. I don't know if that's out yet. I played on Toshi had like a drum record that I played on as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
series. He's got the series of records that. Okay.
That's right. So yeah, I put them to work, and they put me to work as well.
Okay. It was a quid pro quo. So now, had you lost contact with Melvins over the years? I mean, I know you guys have had careers that have been all over the place. I mean, were you mates originally, like back in the day?
Yeah, for sure. I remember seeing those guys play. Boy, it must have been 1984. The Melvins and Soundgarden, Skinyard, U-Men were all part of this record called Deep Six, that I think it came out in 84, 85 or something like that. So that was the first time I ever really became exposed to them. And I was playing with Skinyard at the time. And Soundgarden had Scott Sundquist on drums. So that was like one of the first experiences I had in like a proper studio in Seattle. We recorded at this place called Ironwood, which is now a Vast owned by Stuart Hallerman. So at the records, when the record was released, we had a big record release concert, and that was one of the first times I saw the Melvins play, and was just completely blown away. And they had, I think they had like Gluey Porch Treatments was out at that time, and so that's kind of the title that I put on this EP is it's an homage to that title. It's sort of similar somehow, but not really close. So that was my first exposure to the Melvins, and I introduced myself, and they were really, really nice, kind, people that were part of our music community. They lived in Aberdeen. They lived a ways away. Yeah, so that was my first exposure. And then Soundgarden and the Melvins played in like 86, 87, something like that. We played a couple shows at the Central Tavern and the Metropolis, and then they also played with us a couple times, but we didn't really interact too much in terms of shows. It was just, through mutual friends, seeing them play live occasionally, things like that.
I came to the Melvins certainly later than you did, not growing up in the area, but
yeah,
they've always been a band who's kind of cut their own path.
Totally.
And I'm curious as to early in the days, like what was the response of the peers and the music fans as they were starting off, and they were probably even more alien then than they are now.
Yeah. Well, Kim Thile always credits the Melvins as the first band to slow the tempos down. And by doing that, they influenced Soundgarden and various other local bands at the time. When they first came out, they're more of a hardcore, super fast tempo type of band. And then they just intentionally just changed everything turned around. They completely changed their style and their sound. And that was in the mid 80s. That would set up how they would have their career go in the future. Like they were fearless in how they approached songwriting, who they would bring into the collective known as Melvins. And so there were a lot of aspects to how they set their band up that was always really inspiring to me. And it just came from that sort of, spirit of just being fearless and trying anything.
Yeah.
Well, I always consider their music as high art in the sense that, like, it sort of transcends all the genres, and it's just completely original to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that they created, for themselves and unto themselves. And as a fellow artist, that's really inspiring to hook up with people like that have created something that is uniquely their own.
You brought up the word fearless, which I think is an appropriate word, because looking at their career, they keep changing things, which it's very easy to kind of get into a routine and to find comfort in that. And Melvins tend to, from my view, they're okay with being uncomfortable. In fact, when things start to be pretty consistent, they will change things just for interest or artistic sake.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, they really do. And so it gives you that sense of like, okay, I have this ability to do this one thing, but I'm also going to live on the edge and try this other thing that could work and it could also fail. But just going through that process is going to teach me something about my abilities or about, my band's abilities or something like that. And it might be something that I use in the future, or I'll never use it again. But the ability to do that, in front of an audience is what makes it really interesting to me.
Yeah, they're risk takers.
Risk takers, yeah.
And I think another artist that they remind me of is Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
Because, Frank was kind of out there on the edge, and he also has different periods of his career, and some periods you gravitate towards more than others, and
right.
and sometimes you go from one to the other, and you rotate them. Is there a period of Melvins or a favorite album that you have of theirs?
Oh man, well, I really like Houdini a lot, kind of their 90s stuff when they were kind of channeling into their hyper Kiss frog. It's like Frog Kiss or something like that, It's like I really love Houdini a lot. And then some of the early stuff like Ozma and Gluey Porch treatments are fantastic. But then Buzz did an acoustic album. I think that's really good too. Dale's done a couple solo albums. So it's just, there's just a lot to choose from for sure. And like you were saying, like great artists have different periods in their career where you can see how there's a line between the different developments of how they came to make this art. And sometimes, like, if an artist is really capable of going that way, like they're trying to obliterate what they did in the past and trying to do something completely new, like say Picasso or someone like that. Like they were trying to just kind of get away from what they learned when they first started and try something completely different. So I think it's sort of in that spirit that I really have admired their trajectory in their career and how they are not afraid to change. I mean, another example is Bowie. It's like I grew up listening to Bowie a lot, and how he started one way. It was like that, Anthony Newley kind of cheesy pop songs into Ziggy, and then into, Thin White Duke, and then the 80s and 90s period, I didn't really listen to that much. And then he did Black Star. Like that last record was like, oh, cool. I get to enjoy late period Bowie, and I can't wait. I couldn't wait for the next release, and I think that's in keeping with the spirit of how the Melvins are sort of like having their career go in that same kind of direction.
Mm-hmm. And we're very fortunate that they're also quite prolific. Well,
Totally.
what is their work ethic like?
Oh, God.
Toshi's is kind of their spot. I'm assuming the guitars and the amps are pretty much set up all the time for whenever they're ready to go.
Yeah, Toshi kind of built the studio, and he's got it all dialed in, like everything. Like you just plug in and go, and the guitars are isolated. The drum, like there was 2 drum sets when I was playing with them. It's not a real big place. It's in a industrial park, and they're right next to like a welder and a car fabricator and stuff like that. So
appropriate.
It's a pretty noisy environment, so nobody really complains about what they're doing. But the work ethic is on point. Buzz gets up early, works out with a trainer. He was having some neck issues at the time, and he doesn't do drugs or alcohol or anything. We started at like 11 a.m. sharp every day, and there was a couple of days where they got in early to work on some riffs before our sessions would start. So there's an intense work ethic there.
So you brought in your songs. You didn't send them the tapes or anything, but you just showed up and said, "Oh,
I showed up." Yeah, and I had like, let's see, I think I had like 6 or 7 that I brought in, and initially I would just play them the demo. I had kind of a rough demo with drum machine and guitar parts and some like rough vocal ideas. And I would just show Buzz. I would play guitar with Buzz, showing him the parts. So it was fun for me to show Buzz my goofy guitar parts and play guitar with them. But they were totally open to how I was able to work under those environments. I'm not like I don't like sit down with an acoustic guitar and sing my songs. They're all kind of like mapped out, and it's kind of mathematical. So I figured like it would fit their wheelhouse, their style of rock music.
Yeah.
Dale played drums on one song, and then he also played guitar on a couple songs. So he dove right in, like, hey, let me play guitar on this, and hell yeah. And and then there was a couple songs where Buzz plays, he plays lead on a couple songs, and which he doesn't do a whole lot in the Melvins. Like he's not necessarily like a lead guitarist in that sense. So yeah, I think it was cool to have them kind of, just try what I was doing. And like I said, they collaborate with a lot of different groups, a lot of different artists, and they dive in. They just dive right in.
Mm-hmm. So you played drums on some, Dale played drums on some. Is there any double drum, kind of harking back to the Melvins' big business? Any double drum things?
No, not on this stuff. But there was one track that I decided not to put it out, that maybe I'll put out a little bit later, where Dale and I are both playing drums. But we both drummed on the Spoonman recording. So that was kind of a fun collab that we were doing when I was down there.
Okay. How and Dale, we know he's undergone surgery this year, but this is well before that, so no sign of pain or anything. I saw him probably 8 months before he had his surgery. He was doing two sets a night, Harsh Mellow and Melvins, and so that was. Does he hit pretty hard? Is he? I mean, inside the studio as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can tell it's him playing drums. He's one of those drummers where instantly it's Dale Crover. Mm-hmm. And I think like at this stage of the game, it's more of just back in the day, like he would wind up way behind his head with each stroke, so it was a display of just pure power back in the day. But I think now, just like, with the way I play, like you have to make adjustments when you're in your 50s and 60s. But yeah, I mean, he hit the crap out of those drums for sure. And one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of use their sound because like in their studio, they have the drums dialed in a certain way, the guitars are dialed in a certain way. I didn't want to come in with any of my instruments, and just say, oh, I want this to sound like this. I wanted to have my music work with their sound, and that's kind of what we did, for sure.
So how did you arrive at that idea? Because I'm assuming these songs have been brewing for some time. You connect with Melvins again at the tribute, and is that the moment where you said, you know what, having them as your instrument almost for those songs, is that kind of how it worked?
I guess. I mean, I didn't really. The initial idea was just to work with them, and once I got down to their studio, I really liked the working method that they had with Toshi, and Toshi was kind of the driving force in how each song was put together in, like sonically. And then once I heard the playback, I loved it immediately. It had that sort of like that edge, like their sound is real sharp. It has a real sharp edge to it, even in the drums. I really liked it immediately.
Well, thank you for sending me those files. Give me a sneak peek. It was wonderful. And immediately from note one, it's like, that's Buzz's guitar. That's the sound. That's the sound. When did you decide to go full on Melvins parody?
Oh gosh. Well, it wasn't really that wasn't my initial idea, but I had this stuff recorded and ready to go, like in, I don't know, 2020, kind of pre-pandemic. It was all kind of ready to go. And I just sat on it for a while. I didn't really do anything with it. And then I guess it was last year, I really started to think about it and how I wanted to put it out. I always thought this would be a good record store day release, just in the sense that it could be a special, it could be like the artwork could be special. It could be a special one-off kind of thing. And then once I started thinking about it, I talked with my designer, Josh Graham, who's worked with Soundgarden a whole bunch. And we decided it'd be fun just to do like an homage to Gluey Porch Treatment's cover, which I always thought was really cool and kind of weird. Had that really weird sort of tripped out element. And we tripped it out a little bit more. And from that point on, I just wanted to make it sort of an homage to them and, with my music.
So the idea hit you. All right, we could do Gluey Porch Treatments. You've got.
Yeah, I mean, once I had that idea, I ran it by Buzz, and he was cool with it. And so once he was good with it, I felt okay about pursuing it for a record store day release, as opposed to just this being on a solo Matt Cameron kind of thing. I wanted to sort of let everyone know that the reason it is what it is because of working with those guys.
Yeah. It's such an effective parody. I'm starting to kind of mix up the titles: Gory Scorch Cretins, Gluey Porch Treatments. It's starting to kind of, but
it doesn't really mean anything. Much like the Melvins have always used sort of obscure, obtuse lyrics in a lot of their music. Like they don't necessarily mean anything, but they sound good and they fit rhythmically within the music. So I kind of went with that idea of just trying to make it match, syllable by syllable.
Did you approach Buzz with the entire vision of what the parody would be? Okay, I want to not only do Gluey Porch Treatments, but I'm going to call it something this. I'm going to tweak the cover, same font, everything.
That's right. And he was totally cool with it. And, at the time, when I was going down there in 2019, we were working with Taylor Hawkins a little bit. Like we were talking about doing some stuff together. And then Taylor and I did the Nighttime Boogie Association single together. And we were trying to like cross-pollinate our two projects. And it didn't always work out, but that was a situation where like Taylor and Buzz were hanging out quite a bit. Buzz went over to Taylor's house a couple times and they were, playing music together. So that was a fun little sidebar of this project is, and that's one of the reasons why it's dedicated to Taylor, because we were all kind of working together at that same point. And Buzz plays on one of those tunes that we put out on the Gluey on the Nighttime Boogie Association album. So we were hoping to do more music together, but we just didn't have time, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
All three of us were like, everything was starting to kick in again, and then the pandemic hit. But
okay, so Nighttime Boogie Association was kind of woven into these recordings, these sessions.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Is Taylor on any of the Gory Scorch
No.
recording? Okay.
No, he's not.
All right. And what were the plans for Nighttime Boogie Association?
We'll be back after these messages.
Well, hey there, record collectors. There's a new service available that specializes in record cleaning, restoring, sticker removal, and professional grading.
VMGVinyl.com.
VMG Vinyl can help you make the most of your collectible records. From professional cleaning of records and sleeves,
Removing old price tags and store stickers.
dry cleaning and rejuvenation of old shrink wrap to make it look like new, even providing you a professional play-tested third-party grade with either removable grading or encasing in plastic. You have a wide range of choices at VMGVinyl.com.
Buying a highly collectible record and you want it checked out by an expert?
VMG Vinyl can do that too. Head over there now and see what VMGVinyl.com can do for you and your collection. That's VMGVinyl.com, the one-stop shop for professional third-party grading, cleaning, and record restoration. That's VMGVinyl.com. Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
Now we return to the program, already in progress.
No limits.
What were the plans for Nighttime Boogie Association? There was a
We
full
were
album, maybe?
we were going to do more. Taylor and I, we sent demos back and forth for a couple years, man, and we were just like, okay, this song's good, this song's good. We definitely had plans to do more, and there's one song that we did. There's another song that we collaborated on that maybe we'll see the light of day at some point, but it's not up to me, and I don't want to I don't want to push it or anything. So, but that is the reason why this is dedicated to him, is because he was a little bit of a guiding light for a lot of this music.
Yeah, he seems to have been a guy who just inspired so many people and got along with everyone, it seems.
He had so many people that loved him. One of my main takeaways from the tribute concert that we did at the Forum, he would talk about all these childhood friends. Like, he had this buddy Sven that he would always talk about. Sven, a guy he grew up with in Laguna, surfer buddy. And I met him, and it was just like, whoa. And I heard so much about it's just like going to a family reunion and you see someone that you haven't seen in a long time, or someone that you've heard about and you finally get to meet. And so, other than all the famous dudes he knew, like, I got to meet the guys that he grew up with, and so it was really special in that sense, just to kind of like see what a powerful sort of, family unit he had around him, that had nothing to do with like famous musicians. And those, I can relate to that kind of thing. But no, you're right, Nate. He had a lot of love in his life.
Yeah. I met him only once, and immediately he like made me feel like a friend. Totally. And we just started talking about James Gang, and he was just, it was, how was it that, your observations with him and just listening to music, what were the sort of things that he would key in on?
Oh man. Well, he really, got me into sort of like the Phil Collins era of Genesis. Like he was really obsessed, or like Phil Collins playing drums, like before he became the singer.
Okay.
Like he really wanted me to kind of like dive into that world with him, and I wasn't that familiar with it, in all honesty. So it was like he would send me YouTube clips. We'd talk on the phone. He was like, "Did you listen to this one clip? What'd you think of this drum fill at minute 11:40 or something like that?" It was real specific stuff, and his love of that got me listening more closely to Phil Collins drumming back in the in the early 70s. Stuff like that. Like we would listen to like he was really into Joe Walsh at the time, like he was really close to Joe Walsh, and he would tell me about conversations he had with Joe Walsh or Alex Van Halen, or like the Kardashians, and like, just all these people that were like in his, he kind of lived in that area where all those people were. But there was no shortage of people that just absolutely loved him, and myself included.
Yeah.
What, like I said, one really nice side effect was that Buzz got to connect with Taylor and vice versa, because Taylor never really knew those guys, and he knew that, like, he knew how important the Melvins were to the evolution of Nirvana, and getting Dave into the band, like that's pretty much a lot of that what had to do with Buzz. But
yeah, Buzz was the connector, I think.
He was a connector.
We just had Pete Stahl on the show.
Oh, cool.
And
cool.
So we talked about the gig where Kurt and everyone saw Dave and said, "Let's get a drummer like that."
Totally.
So, by the way, anyone listening who hasn't heard this, there are some YouTube clips for Nighttime Boogie Association, and a couple of songs, "Long in the Tooth," I think, and "The Path We're On." Nighttime Boogie Association, again, Matt, Taylor Hawkins, Buzz Osborne, and Steve McDonald. So those are the two songs from Nighttime Boogie Association. You say there's more potentially, or there's some that are kind of on tape somewhere, not sure what their fate will be.
Yeah. There's a couple, there's a few that we did complete together. But they didn't include Buzz. It was just Taylor and I.
Okay. So we'll see if those emerge at some point. Just curious if you're familiar with Melvins and some of the art that they do with Tom Hazelmeyer.
Yeah.
Because they've got their own take on Gluey porch treatments.
Whoa!
Have you seen that before?
I've never seen that. That is cool as shit.
Yeah. That's it. Of course, they do, like, there's like 200 of these made or whatever like that.
Right.
Yeah. Tom does his own artwork on these, and of course he works with Buzz on them. So maybe there's a Gory Scorch Cretins Haze artwork parody somewhere in the universe.
I'm all for it.
Now, there's 2,500 of these pressed worldwide. That's not a big number.
Yeah.
So these are probably going to be hard as shit to get on Record Store Day. All black? Are any colors or anything? Is it just black vinyl?
It's all white. The cover's white, and the record's going to be white. So it's just black and white.
Got it. Okay.
It kind of looks like I kind of wanted to get that look of an old flyer, like just a flyer you'd see on a telephone pole. Yeah. I wanted that kind of to be the whole vibe of this thing. Like, oh, what's that? Is that a cool show? Is that going to be a cool record? Just kind of like from like back in the day.
Again, it's just such a good parody. I think people are going to have to look twice to tell the difference between that and the Gluey porch treatments. So, Keep It Trippy Records, is that you, or who is Keep It Trippy Records?
That was that was the imprint that Taylor and I came up with when we put out Nighttime Boogie Association. I kind of established that, and I just wanted to keep it going with this release.
All right, so that's another homage there.
Yeah, kind of.
Were you involved in the Coattail Riders at all?
Nope. No, it was not. But I was involved with the Navarro, like the one that he did with Dave Navarro, MPB, I think it was is what it was.
Okay.
And we did. I played live with those guys at the Ohana Fest in 2022, and I got to jam with those guys. It was Navarro, Chris Chaney, Pat Smear, and Dave, and Taylor, and we did "Keep Yourself Alive" by Queen.
Oh man, of course, going back to Queen.
That's right.
Now, go back in some of your discography. There was a couple of recordings that I thought were really particularly interesting. Playing with Tony Iommi. Yeah, tell me a little bit about playing with the man.
Well, Tony did a record in, I think it was 2000, and God, I think I was just recommended for that thing. He got different drummers, and I think some different bass players to play on various tracks, and I got a call through, I think, Kelly Curtis at the time. And I just dropped everything and said, of course I'll do this. Playing with Tony Iommi. Are you fucking kidding me? But yeah, I played on 3 or 4 tracks, and the process for that was that all of the music had been recorded previously, the guitars and everything. So they brought in drummers like to play at, like the drums came on last for the tracks I played on.
Last, that's kind of different, isn't it?
Yeah. So I just played to a click track, and it was so cool to hear Tony's guitars in my headphones, and it reminded me of Kim Thayil in the sense that like all of his riffs, where he would start the riff was a little bit behind the beat, like because like everything was played to a click track, but it was still like it lagged a little bit, and that's kind of how Kim, when I play with Kim, like I have to be aware that he lags it a little bit. And I don't try to change it or anything, but I just have to be aware of that's his style. And so Tony's style kind of reminded me of that. But, like there was one track that I played. One track has Peter Steele from Typo Negative, who's no longer with us. Then there's one track that has Phil Anselmo. One track had Billy Idol. So there was like just a mega cast of like just stars,
You've played with so many people. I mean, all the different bands you've been on. Is there anyone that is almost kind of like, wow, I'd still love to play with this artist that you've never had a chance to play with?
Jimmy Page.
Okay. That's a very quick answer. You had the top of mind.
Jimmy Page. Yeah, he's my North Star. But I've been really fortunate to be able to play with my childhood heroes. Like I got to play on Geddy Lee's solo album, and he's doing a book tour right now, and he reached out to me to like do something with him like for this book tour, and we're trying to figure out what that might be. So it's just nice like to make these connections with these heroes of mine, and like they're really just kind of really nice normal people, to a degree. I mean, they're legendary magicians, but it's cool when they just kind of like text you out of the blue like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? I'm busy, but maybe we could reschedule it.
Yeah, it's been 3 years since Gigaton. Of course, there was the pandemic and everything, and it's been pretty quiet in the Pearl Jam camp. I'm kind of hoping this is the calm before the storm. Is it 20? Yeah, making plans for 2024.
We're sort of figuring all that stuff out right now. But we did make a record with Andrew Watt that's in the can, mastered, mixed, ready to go. And so I think like the powers that be are trying to figure out, when that's going to come out and touring and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you're right. We did dip our toes back in after the pandemic. We did some shows in 2021, and then we did a tour and we did some shows in 22. We did kind of a big tour in 2022, and we had to wear masks, and the crew had to wear a mask, and we had to test, and it was just like it was just no fun,
Hmm.
We got through it great and the crowds were fantastic, but we just did a little run this past September, and that was like kind of back to normal. I mean, I caught COVID during that tour, unfortunately, but I think like in general, the touring industry is pretty much back to normal.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
So 2024, there's a good chance that you'll be hitting the road again, and possibly with an album in tow.
So.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. One other point, just as I understand, and I don't know what you could say about this, but there were the final recordings with Chris, the Soundgarden ones, final 7 songs. Is any particular plans, or do you think we're going to see those in 2024?
I don't think so, unfortunately. We're still in the middle of a kind of a dispute with the estate, and so I think, yeah, it's
Okay.
everything's on hold right now. So, and I can't really like go into details, unfortunately, but as of right now, no, it doesn't look like it's going to happen next year,
Okay.
but hopefully soon. I'm not giving up hope.
I thought the dispute was clear. Okay. Is there anything
Yeah,
you could share?
we did too.
Is there anything you could share about something, even a title or anything like that? Anything you can mention?
Well, I mean, the titles were in the in the lawsuit. I guess
Don't worry about it if you can't.
Yeah, I gotta tread lightly here, so I probably shouldn't really go into it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Last time we had you on the show, we talked a little bit about your Kiss parody lawsuit from very early in your career.
Oh God, did I bring that up, Nate? Oh Jesus, why did I do that?
Yeah,
me and my big mouth.
This is I'll show you our recent Kiss parody. This is our family's Christmas card this year. So
that's awesome. That is awesome.
So yeah,
oh my God,
I will send you one if you want.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. I've got a photo. I have a photo up here. I don't know if I have it, but yeah, I was in a Kiss cover band when I was like 14 years old and growing up in San Diego. So they were huge. They were huge for me. I was talking to someone recently about how, where we can remember when Destroyer came out and like seeing that record cover for the first time in the record store as we were buying it, and just like what a monumental memory that is, just they were everything. So yeah, they played a big part in my development. That was just when I was a teenager and stuff. I didn't really pay attention to them after that, but we did get to meet those guys. Like, oh boy, there's a really good photo of Kiss and Soundgarden in 1997. We were down in Australia, and they had just started their comeback tour with Peter and Ace,
full makeup and everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so there's a photo. I don't think I have it here, but I can send it to you of Kiss and Soundgarden backstage. It's pretty great. Ben, our bass player, hated Kiss. Was not a fan at all. And so we're just like, okay, Ben, just be cool, man. We're just gonna get a photo, man. Just don't, let's all just get along. But once he hung out with everyone, everyone loved Ben, and Ben really loved everyone else. But yeah, Kim was a huge Kiss fan. Chris, not as much. Like he didn't really. I don't think it made that much of an impression as it did with Kim and myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you remember when Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park came out?
Of course I do.
How did you feel the next day about it?
Oh, I just remember that it was at Magic Mountain. Yeah. And that was an amusement park that I went to as a kid. My family took me up there when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13. And I remember some of the roller coasters and stuff like that. So that was my takeaway. It's like, whoa, there are Kisses at Magic Mountain. Whoa. But looking back on it now, it's a horrible movie. And Ace was like wasted on coke and whiskey. There was an article that came out online like today. It's like, well, duh, of course he was, man. Of course he was. And I guess like one of the funny things too is there was a stunt double of Ace and he's in the movie quite a bit. And like he's much shorter, and I guess he was a African American dude. So
yeah.
So yeah, it was just a comedy of errors for sure.
It's hilarious now. Yeah, I remember when it came out, and when we were young, at that point, Kiss could do no wrong, right? Yeah. We had Kiss cards, Kiss all sorts of things. And then when Kiss Beats the Phantom, when Kiss Beats the Phantom of the Park came out, I remember everyone excited. You know, we watched it at home, and then we came back to school the next day, and most of us were just kind of shaking our heads like that. That didn't go anything like we thought it would. And these days, if you look, I don't know when's the last time you saw it, but yeah, it's still a good watch, but for completely different reasons.
It hasn't aged well. Let's put it that way.
It didn't age well the day after it came out.
That says a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, Matt, thank you so much for making some time to talk about this record, Gory Scorch Cretins. Only 2,500 pressed, available Record Store Day, Black Friday, November 24th. You're going to have to grab one earlier. You're going to have to make friends with the guy at the record shop or girl at the record shop to get one, because 2,500 worldwide isn't that many. And this is great. I've heard it. It is, so many great elements of the music that I love, especially around Melvins. I mean, one of the greatest American rock bands in history, certainly to me and my generation. And if you're not if you're not that familiar with Melvins, send me a DM. I'll send you a whole list of where to start. Probably Houdini's a good, safe place, but there's a lot of great gems. I think they've got some 40 albums or something. So for record collectors, Melvins are peak of the mountain. Matt, good luck with you in 2024. I know you've probably got 25 projects lined up and some tours and whatnot like that.
I've got a few lined up. Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure you do. You're very busy, but mate, let's keep in touch. Let me know when you have some other stuff coming out. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
All right. Thank you, Nate. I really appreciate it.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. Mr. Matt Cameron, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, about a few dozen other projects. And I got to tell you, these songs on Gory Scorch Cretins kick ass. If you find this record, if you see this record on Record Store Day, Black Friday, or by some miracle, there's one left over in the bin and you see it, they say, grab it. It kicks ass. You will not regret it. I'm a little nervous. I got to be honest. I'm going to need to hunt for one myself, and hopefully I'll be in a position where I will be able to find one. But make sure you grab one if you see it. Matt Cameron's Gory Scorch Cretins for Record Store Day, Black Friday. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Hey, I need you guys to do me a favor. Give me a good review, please. Hop on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Give me a 5 out of 5 stars. Say something nice. Make me blush. That is always appreciated. And of course, everyone who's sharing on social media, that kicks ass too. Thank you so much. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and support your independent record stores, people. Buy a shit ton of records and enjoy your Record Store Day Black Friday. Cheers.